All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty One territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland, the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me in person is Doug Marks, and attending by Zoom is Ron Merritt. The assessor today is Ryan Valderrama, and the administrative assistant is Jaswindra Kumar. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. I guess there's nobody waiting in the Zoom. Both towns are here. I'll skip that part. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that the comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value reclassification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have and the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate and make its decisions. Receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 9 on our docket today. Mr. Kumar, can you please affirm the assessors and applicants' testimony?
Yes, sir. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Ryan Valderrama.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please stand up. State your full name.
Jeff Badger.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Complete set.
Okay, so the first item on today's docket is 540 Balmoral Street, and the issue is assessed value. So, Mr. Valderrama, can you lead us through your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item has a file number of 22-773. Has a roll number of 130-518-24100. It is located at 540 Balmoral Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023, a reference date of April 1st, 2021. It has an assessed value of $584,000, a classification of 20 residential 2 and liability of taxable. It is a residential apartment with 1 building and 3 stories. It has an actual built of 1905. It has 16 suites, 5 outdoor parking. It is zoned as a C2 with a land area of 6202 or 6,202 square feet, with a plan area of 4,345. And it has a gross floor area of 17,380 square feet. And on page 3 are a couple of subject photos, subject property photos. And then on page 4, we have the income valuation summary. It has a gross potential rent of $88,229, a vacancy rate of 3.2%, with a vacancy in terms of dollars of $2,823. It has an effective gross income of $85,406, an expense ratio of 61.03%, making an expenses in terms of dollars of about $52,123. It has a net operating income of $33,283, with a capitalization rate of 5.7%. The capitalized income is $583,912, or $584,000 rounded. On the next page, page 5, there are 4 comparable rents. The first one is located at 485 Sherbrooke. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $642. The second comparable is located at 344 Furby Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $634. On column 3, the next comparable is located at 573 Sherbrooke Street. It has an average monthly rent of about $632. And the fourth comparable is located at 952 Notre Dame Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of about $563. The subject property has an average monthly rent per unit of $525.17. And on the next page is the map of the subject property and the comparable leases or comparable rents. On page 7 is the capitalization rates. It is a direct capitalization method is used to convert a property's single year of income into an indication of value by dividing the estimated net operating income by an appropriate capitalization rate. Capitalization rates can be derived from properties that have sold by dividing each property's net operating income by its sale price. For the 2023 general reassessment, which has an April 1st, 2021 reference date, capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income and sale prices that were time adjusted to April 1st, 2021. The assessed values produced by the application of these model-generated capitalization rates were compared to sale prices, and assessment to sale price ratios were calculated. The resulting ratio statistics for the assessment and taxation departments income producing models satisfy the standards specified and set forth in the Standard on Ratio Studies published by the International Association of Assessing Officers. Assessment and taxation departments' capitalization rates are further supported by a comparison with real estate market reports from Colliers International Canada, CBRE National Research, and Cushman & Wakefield. The following chart compares assessment and taxation departments' capitalization rates with the published rates by fitting ATD's rate into the property type categories used in these reports. ATD's property type classes are more comprehensive so that they cover every property type in the city. The 20th and 80th percentiles show the range of capitalization rates used by assessment and taxation department for 60% of the parcels within that specified or specific property type. In many cases, the published rates fall within the 20th and 80th percentiles, indicating the tenability of the capitalization rates derived by the ATD or the assessment and taxation department. So we have almost second to the bottom, a multifamily, which is the property type of the subject property. We have high-rise, low-rise. The high-rise range between 4.8 to 5.6%. A low-rise would range between 4.8 to 5.6%. Low-rise A is ranging from 4.8 to 5.6, and the low-rise B again is ranging from 4.8 to 5.6%. On the next page, I have some capitalization rate evidence. So the following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. So I have a few properties here that have sold within the reference date or before the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The first one is located at 2319 McPhillips. It has a sale date of October 9, 2020. And it has a sale price of $19,400,000. It has 90 suites, a year built of 2015, and an effective age of 2015. It's valued per suite at $215,556, giving a cap rate of about 4.79%. The next sale is located at 510 Burnell, which sold around September 4, 2020, with a sale price of $2,813,000. It has 28 suites, an effective year built and an actual year built of 1969. It has an average suite value of about $100,464 based on the sale price. And it has a capitalization rate of 4.54%. And the third sale is located at 700 St. Mary's Road, or St. Mary's, sorry. It is sold around April 7th, 2020. It has a sale price of $1,035,000. Has 9 suites, an effective year built and an actual year built of 1961. And it is valued per suite at around $115,000. It has a cap rate of 3.6%. The next sale is located at 1833 Pembina Highway. It was sold July 4th, 2019, with a sale price of $22,500,000. It has 140 suites. It has a year built of 1972 and an effective age of about 1999. It is valued per suite at around $160,714. It has a calculated cap rate of about 4.46%. The next sale is located at 859 Grosvenor. It is sold July 4, 2019 for about $7 million. It has 41 suites with a year built of 1928 and an effective age of 1964. It is valued at around $732 per suite, and then it has a cap rate of about 4.68%. The last sale that I have here is located at 203 Bertrand. It was sold June 14, 2019, with a sale price of $925,000. It has 9 suites with an effective year built or effective age and an actual year built of 1963. It is valued at around $102,778 per suite and a cap rate of 4.77%. And on the next few pages are the pages from the income and expense summary that we have on file with regard to the property that was submitted to our department. And that is my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Manager, questions of the assessor?
Yes. And on page 1, you list that there's 16 residential suites there. And your workup on the income side, you use 14. Do you have that difference? Can you explain the difference, or?
No, I don't have that information. I wasn't able to inspect the property, the interior of it, so I have no information on which one is which.
Were you able to have an opportunity to look at exterior, outside?
Not a drive-by, but through Google Pictures.
Okay. Looking at your Google picture there, I just want to, you list that there's 5 parking stalls. If you take a look at your Google picture, there's no parking stalls. the building's basically encapsulates the whole site. I mean, it's not that important. I just thought I would point that out.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
The did you have an opportunity to look at the past assessors inspection reports?
No, I wasn't able to.
Did you were you able to have an opportunity to look at the past assessment appeal decisions?
No, I did not.
Okay. Were you able to look at the last assessment periods financial numbers that the model spat out in regards to operating expenses?
I'm sorry, last assessment cycle?
Yes.
No, I wasn't able to.
Okay. Yeah. Last comment, it just because I have a dispute on the operating expenses. I just want to point out on your rent comparables. I just want to note that you have this property listed in terms of the gross floor area per unit, 1,241 square feet. Does that seem abnormal to you, or
Which page was that?
large gross area per suite on average for an apartment building?
I'm sorry, which page is that?
Your page 5,
Page 5. Okay.
column under subject property.
Mhm.
Third row at the bottom, gross floor area per unit, 1,241 square feet. I'm just asking if you think that's normal. Is that above average or below average, or?
Well, it's a calculated, I believe this is a calculated or a mathematical area that was calculated based on the gross floor area and the number of units. So in terms of what's normal and what's below or above in the market right now, I believe this is it all depends on the area and on the newer developments or older developments of the city. So I won't be able to comment if it is above, below, or within the average.
So would you say that the larger the floor area is per residential suite, that would affect the operating expenses? More area to heat, more area to clean, more area to light, more area to insure?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The cap rate that you use, I'm not disputing the cap rate. It's just more for clarification. I think the range was 4.8 up to as high as 6. You used 5.7. Is that just model driven then?
The 5.7 is a model driven cap rate. Yes.
I think that's all my questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Merritt, any questions of the assessor? He's muted. I think you're muted, Ron.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. You okay?
Yep. Now we can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Vanderema, good morning to you.
Morning, Mr. Merritt.
You have specified a few sales, for apartment buildings, okay? So in your, I guess, presentations, I know that for the subject property, you've used a model-driven cap rate. So does it correspond to some of your findings in regards to a capitalization for the subject property?
I believe this is a model-driven cap rate, and if you know, which I opted to use, just with regard to the capitalization rate evidence, it can be noted that there are sales out there that would lead to a much lower cap rate right now in the market. So I mean, with regard to being more, if it's if cap rate that I used is higher. Yes, it is higher than what is being seen in the market right now, or as of based on the sales that I have on page 8.
So as you said, your capitalization rates are coming in a lot lower than what you're using. So do you feel like that should it be around the same, or are you justified in saying that I'm going with the model capitalization rate?
It could be argued that the capitalization rate that was generated by the model is higher than the market, and it is pretty obvious with the samples that I have provided. So in terms of if it is higher, or if I'm confident with it, maybe if I would look at this more closely, I would go with a lower cap rate on this one.
All right. I thank you, Mr. Vanderama. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Marks, any questions?
Yes, because of the age of the building, have there been any upgrades, electrical, plumbing, or structural in this building?
In terms of the upgrades, I don't have any permits attached, or I wasn't able to look at the permits if there were. So I wouldn't be able to speak to that, Mr. Chair or sir.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Okay, and the properties you list there, then they're not intended to be comparable to the current the property under appeal, are they? On your page 8.
Well, they are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property, correct? However, it can be argued that what's happening in the market right now may be there are much lower cap rates in the market as of April 1st, 2021.
Okay, and last cycle, in your cap rate study, not only did you list the 20th and 80th percentiles, but you also listed the minimum and maximum. Now this cycle you didn't list those. Is there any particular reason for that?
I am not sure. I believe this is a new format, and I believe this information is, I think it's almost pretty much similar to the last cycle. It's just we're still showing 20th and 80th percentile in this cycle.
Yes, but not the minimum and maximum like you did last cycle.
It's a range, yes. With this cycle, we have a range between 4.8 to 5.6, particularly on multifamily.
Okay, that's no more questions on that. So, Mr. Badger, you can give your presentation.
Am I able to just clarify a couple points?
Oh, sure. If you wanted to get a couple follow-up points.
I just want to point out, this is probably, I'm not disputing the cap rate, so I didn't really dwell on that. Any question? What I was going to ask you, on page 1, you showed that the actual age of this building is 1905 and it was built. The effective age is 1905. That would reflect that there's been no upgrades. Is that correct?
Based on those, yes.
And I just want to go back to the comparables here. Capitalization rate evidence that you gave on page 8. Of all these buildings that you list here, are any of them heritage?
I'm sorry?
Are any of them heritage? All those examples there, the capitalization rate examples, are any of them heritage structures?
Heritage meaning the older structures?
Old, yes, like very old.
Well, looking at the year built, it can be argued that the year built of the subject property is way older, with an exception of 859 Grosvenor, which is about 1928, and it has an effective age of 1964. So I would say none of those would be within 1905 year built.
Okay. So they're all basically have I'm old, okay, so in my eye, something's been done in the last 20 years versus last 100 years. I treat them as being a little bit newer or at least upgraded, but so there's no comparables here. There's no heritage buildings that haven't been upgraded in this, in your examples here that you've given.
I'm not aware of any of those. None of this. These cap rate evidence samples.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I can get to my presentation.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to start off by just skimming through page 3, a summary of salient facts. I think they were all given by the assessor, so I don't have too much to say about that. Other down towards the bottom, I gave you the results of the 2016 assessment roll, where the assessment department had assessed the property, based on their model, generated evaluation of 478. In the last 3 or 4 months, I mentioned to you that we settled lots with the municipal board at 375,000. That was by way of an agreement with the municipal board. We didn't go to the final case. It was a sit down with the assessment department. In the 2018, the model spat out 522. That was brought down to 340,000 for the 2018. And the 22, there's no. I made a mistake here. The assessed value, what I'm talking about now, is 584, which came up now, and that's for the 2023 assessment rule. And I'm recommending an assessment be reduced down to 471,000. I just wanted to point out, flip over to page 4. We don't have any dispute about the size of the building, the number of suites. Well, I guess the reason is the difference between the 16 and the 14 is because the assessment department finally acknowledges there's 2 units in the basement that are completely taken out. Actually, the city has actually gone in there and sort of abandoned them. So I think for rental purposes, your model is using 14, but they're physically there, but they just can't be occupied. So from an income point of view, we should be using 14 suites. I used 16, and what I did was my vacancy rate, I adjusted for the number based on having a higher vacancy rate. The building is heritage in my last paragraph. There's 3 units right now that can't be occupied for health reasons and code reasons. It's an odor heating system, and then I have 5 properties today. They're all heritage properties. They all have the exact same problem. It's the old steam heat pipes are leaking in the basement. They basically destroyed the floors and the walls in the lower units, so they're all going to have high vacancy rates. And this property is suffering from the same thing. I'm going to flip over to. Maybe we can just jump into the my evaluation summary, which is at the very end.
Page 6.
It's page 8. I don't think we basically, the assessor covered about how they go about assessing that using the income approach, etc. And so what I'd like to do is just jump right to exhibit 1, the evaluation summary. In column A, I have the assessor's work up there. I've included the 2018 and the 2020. That's the evaluation year. 2020, its assessment year is the 2018. I got the owner's statement for 2018, the owner's statement for 2020, and then what I did in column C, I normalized it because the owner, his actual results are way worse than what I know that. From an assessment point of view, they basically won't accept it. And so I've normalized it because he has some, his vacancy was actually 35%, which is, way out of line in the market. And anyways, the only thing I wanted to point out is the rents that I'm using are slightly higher than the assessment departments because they're actually higher. assessment department used 525, I'm using 574. In regards to vacancy, the assessment department for 2020 are using 3.2%. On the normalized statement, I'm saying I can't argue here today that you should be operating at 35% vacancy, which was the actual. That's an operating problem, but I rounded it off at 20%. And the way I came up with 20%, this is on some of our decisions to pass assessment department and say the cap on the vacancy that they can use in the worst scenario is 20%. We have there's 3 units I said that cannot be occupied, and there's been no attempt to sort of fix them. They basically be taken out of the operation there. The 3 to 16 would give you a vacancy rate of 18.75%. If you add the 3.2% vacancy that the assessor is using for the balance of the units, that would be a vacancy rate of 22%. But the assessment's cap, from my past experiences, 20% for a building that has extremely high vacancy rate. There's another property coming up today. You'll see they're using 20% that has the same problem. The only other thing I'd like to point out, this building, it is a larger building. The reason I was dwelling on the gross floor area per suite, it is bigger than normal because it's got a lot of wasted space in it, which would reflect on operating expenses. I'd just like to point out, you see on column A, the assessor of 2018, they used 57,000 as the operating expenses. And now they're saying for the operating year 2020, they're saying it should be 52. They've actually dropped it, but it doesn't make sense. Our costs are going up. Of the buildings that I'm going to be talking about today, 37 is a little bit on the low side. The owner's actual was 60,503. I used 6143 as the operating costs per unit. So my operating costs are roughly 15% higher than the assessment's workup. I don't have a dispute in the capitalization rate, so that would give me an end result of 471,000 as my recommendation for the evaluation for the assessment.
Is that your presentation?
That's my presentation, yes.
Okay, questions, Mr. Boardroom?
No questions for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Marks?
Upgrades to the building.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought people know that I represent a bad landlord.
Okay, have there been any building permits taken up?
I think that the boiler had to be replaced about 10 years ago, so they would have been forced to take the permit for that. But they didn't change the piping. There's still radiators and everything in there. Still steam, but
Is it still knob and tube wiring throughout?
yes, the wiring's never been upgraded. Like I'm shocked. You'll see pictures of some of these other ones. They're still only got like 6 circuits in the per suite or something like that. It's just crazy.
Have there been any building permits taken out regarding, changes in structure or anything of that
No.
nature?
The one reason why I asked the question about whether or not he's read the notes in the past, we have brought the assessors in usually and walk through, and they see the mess the place is in, and then they usually come to agreement.
Okay,
No
further questions. Thank you.
Okay. So your rent then, that's the rent as full, is it?
Yes, based on 16 units, though, which can't be occupied. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you're not double counting the vacancy by lowering the income and then adding the higher vacancy on top of it.
No. I'm showing the gross potential at 16.
Okay. I just wanted to ensure we're not double counting here.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got no further questions on this one. Did I forgot you, Ron. You're out of sight, out of mind.
When I'm out of sight, I'm out of mind. All right. I have just a couple of questions. Good morning, Mr. Badger.
Morning.
Are you the property manager for these buildings in question?
No,
No, you're just representing the clients?
yes,
Okay. Is there a chronic vacancy in regards to this building?
yes, but if, yes, based on the 16, there, yeah, right now there's 3 there. The prior, the last assessment period, there was 2 that were taken out of commission, now there's 3.
Excuse me. You took this property to the municipal board in prior years?
Yes,
And when you, just offhand, when they reduced it to 375,000, what was the V-Day at that point? Do you recall?
I'm going back to my,
Yeah. 2018?
yeah, yes.
Okay. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Another question popped in my mind, but now it's flown out. So if you see it floating around, let me know. Okay, thank you very much. And summation, Mr. Valderrama.
None at the moment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Badger, submission on this one. Oh, I know the question I'm gonna ask you. Those 3 suites of the commission, what size suites are they? 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, bachelor?
2 bedrooms. To be honest, I just use averages here. I didn't start dwelling down on the exact ones that came off, but they're the 2 lower units. Now there's 3 down there.
All right, so any summation then?
Well, we're pretty close on everything, with the exception I mentioned that the rents are a little bit higher than what they're using, so I corrected that. The vacancy is quite a bit higher. If the assessor had an opportunity to read some of those files, they'll see it. There'll be pictures on record. We've walked the assessors, previous assessors through. Our operating costs are this guy does minimal, so operating costs are pretty low, but it's still higher than what the model that they're using generates. So I'm saying the 61,000 is very reflective of where they're really at. And I'm not arguing with the capitalization rate at 5.7. I know it's on the highest, it's on a higher part of the scale, but I think the condition of the property location warrants a higher cap rate or a higher end of that scale between 5 and 6%.
Okay, thank you for that. We will move on to 554 Jesse Avenue. Give us a moment to open the appropriate funds. We have everyone have the file open?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Valderrama, you can begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-774. It has a roll number of 12097751700. It is located at 554 Jesse Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with the reference date of April 1st, 2021. It is assessed at $1,483,000. It has a classification of 20 residential 2 with a liability of taxable. It is a residential apartments with 1 building and 3 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1916. It has 30 suites with 18 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 12,041 square feet, a planned area of 5,870 square feet, a gross floor area of 23,480 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of photos of the subject property. And on the next page, page 4, is the income valuation summary. Has a total number of units of 31. Has a gross potential rent of $239,847, a vacancy rate of 4.2%, which translates into $10,074 of vacancy. It has an effective gross income of $229,773. Expense ratio that it has is 59.66%, which is about $137,083. It has a net operating income of $92,690. Given a capitalization rate of 6.25%, the capitalized income is $1,483,040, or $1,483,000 rounded. On the next page, page 5, there are 4 rent comparables. The first one is located at 879 Warsaw Avenue. It has an average monthly rent of about $829. The second comparable is located at 612 Gordon Avenue. There's an average monthly rent of about per unit of about $681. The third comparable is located at 825 Corridon Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of about $974. And the last comparable is located at 572 Corridon Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $697. The subject property has an average monthly rent per unit of about $644.75. On the next page, page 6, is a map of the subject property and the comparable leases or comparable rents. On page 7, I do have the capitalization rates, which I've already discussed earlier. And on page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence, which I've also discussed earlier. And the next few pages, pages 9 to 11, are the income and expense information of the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, Ms. Badger?
Yes, zoning R1. On your map, you show that the property is on 2 lots. Or the property actually sits on, I'm sorry, the building itself sits on 1 lot, 1 legal lot. For assessment purposes, the lot to the side is a separate lot. So I guess my question, I'm going to go, you list that there's 18 outdoor parking stalls. Is that something that you saw, or how did you come up with 18?
It's based on the records so far that we have on file.
Okay. What I want to point out just to this committee here is that the zoning is residential 1. The parking lot, I know that the picture shows that there's some parking stalls being utilized on that empty lot, vacant lot, but it's in non-conformance. The owner has been served numerous orders and fined for allowing his tenants to park on those spots. So from a legal point of view, the only parking stalls we have are 6, which are on the east side of the building. They're not allowed to use that residential lot because the zoning here is R1. And I guess I was going to ask the question, I guess I should start off by asking him, maybe you looked at the records, but you haven't physically driven around or looked at the property.
No, not a drive-by, no.
Okay, so that lot is not improved. It's grass in the front. It's gravel and mud. It's not a conforming parking lot, nor does it have zoning for a parking lot. So from an evaluation point of view, the available outdoor parking is 6, not 18. And then just very quickly, you'll just confirm it's a heritage property. Show 1916. Effective year built is 1916. That means it's never been upgraded. Is that correct?
I don't have the permits with me, so I'm not. I won't be able to say if it's upgraded or not upgraded.
Okay. In terms of the number of units that you say here, the number of suites you say are 30, and your income workup you got 31.
Correct.
Can you explain the difference or?
No, I don't have the information why there are discrepancies on the number of units on this property.
Okay. And just because it's a subject when we talk about operating cost per unit, your gross floor area per suite works out to 782, which you would probably show on your, trying to think where you do the calculation.
Page 5.
Page 5, yeah, you talk about the, oh yeah, gross floor area, 757. That would be normal for all one bedrooms, I would say.
Again, as I've mentioned earlier, I wouldn't be able to ascertain if it's normal or below normal or above normal. Just by basing it on the gross floor area per unit.
Okay. You haven't reviewed the past municipal decisions on the property yet?
No, those are assessments, past assessments, even though they were decisions of the municipal board. So I wasn't able to review them too.
Okay. No, I understand. I'm not trying to be smart. Just I understand that.
No. I'm just trying. Yeah. I understand.
And I'm trying to show the board point. Page 3 is the picture of the building. It's pretty bad, but I had letters I was going to bring them, but it was going to be after the fact. So I didn't bring it from the city violation, code violation, and they've been fined for having those cars there in between the building there. I see here that the model generated capitalization rate uses 6.25%, which is quite high, above the range. Any comments on that? Why is that something you selected, or was that just the model that selected it?
It is a model-driven capitalization rate.
Okay. Your rank comparables, page 5. I just want to go review with them. Are any of these still to check the dates on them?
I muted
Are any of them heritage buildings?
my microphone.
I am not sure with the term heritage, but I would argue that these are, or the comparable rents are newer than the subject property, or the subject property is way older than the comparable rents.
But all of them have been upgraded, right? If you look at the effective year built.
Sorry, I'm not sure if they were upgraded or not. I don't have the information on the with regard to the permits and any work that were done on the comparables.
I just want to use your, I took a look on your comparable number 4, average rents is $697, and you're utilizing a rental rate of $644 for the subject property. The difference being, well, on your comparables, it ranges anywhere between $36 to $52 per residential unit. And for a building that's has like I looked at the descriptors on these buildings here. They got window coverings, outdoor parking available, large apartments, upgraded wood floorings, new kitchens, bathrooms, utilities are included. But do you think a building that's heritage and never been upgraded versus one that's been upgraded, would that not warrant a market rent of greater than the $36 to $52 that your scale shows here?
Well, if I'm looking at the average monthly rent per unit on my rent comparables page, it is quite clear that the subject property is way lower than the comparable rents that are presented.
I'm looking at 612 and then 572 for where it's got rents of 681 and 697, which is $36 to $52 greater than the subject property that this thing spat out this comparison here. So my question is, so you think a client and someone but basically it's telling me that someone would be willing to rent a unit in this Jesse apartment building, $645 a month, let's say, and whereas they can go down the street and for an extra $36 rent something that's been all upgraded. But does that make sense, or is that a market point of view? You think that?
I wouldn't be able to comment on that. I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, but do you think that's the only differential that would someone would be willing to pay for an upgraded building?
I am not sure what is the motivation of every renter, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Yeah, that answers all my questions.
Okay, Mr. Merritt, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Marks?
Might have been answered up to this point. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, me too. So, Mr. Badger, you can begin your presentation.
On page 3, I got to admit, I got a little bit confused on these. I was just giving you a listing of what's happened in the past. So in terms of the assessed value in 2012, which would be the assessment roll period, 2014, it was assessed at $899 and it got reduced to $519. The next cycle it went from
Is that Board of Appeals?
certificate. Yeah, no. C of A is municipal board. But C of A an agreement though with the assessment department. So we didn't go to the actual hearing.
Certificate of agreement.
Certificate of agreement. Yeah.
Okay.
The next cycle was 12. It was reduced to 585. Next cycle it was the assessment came out at 1250. 1,250,000. We reduced to 770. The last cycle in this board was 1,445, reduced to 940. I believe, trying to look at the records there. Assessed value for 2020 was 144. Okay, it was 940,000. The panel here reduced it to 1,149,000. When I took it to the municipal board and got it down to 940,000. Okay, so I'm just saying we're looking at a big jump from 940,000 to the 1.48. Okay, and it's just unfortunate because I know that the model doesn't pick up all these abnormal things with this particular property. So I'll just run over with you. The market rent, the actual rents here are controlled by the rent control. The building's never been upgraded, so they've never gone for any increases above the guideline. So right now, this building it's all one bedrooms. The market, the rent that they're getting right now is $447 per month. These are hot rents. Okay. The building only contains 30 residential units. There was a mistake that had been clarified before here with the assessment department. It's not 31 as they used in their income model here. The building's in poor condition. The steam heating, the boiler has been changed to produce the steam heat, but all the piping has never been done. Of the 6 basement suites right now, 5 cannot be occupied. And there's 3 additional units that have been taken out of this service above. So there's about 8 vacant suites in the building at the current time.
Is that permanently vacant?
The ones in the basement there. The building should probably be knocked down. Actually, if you want me to, I did note it here. At the municipal board, what we got into it, we ended up just working out a shell value per suite. I think we used 25,000. Acknowledging the building needs to be totally redone to bring it up. Start looking at it. So we got to the point where we're already in land value and shell values for someone who would buy it on the basis of totally redoing it. So we worked out a range of, I think it's $25,000 to $30,000 a residential unit. Okay, on the very last page, page 9. I just show the assessor's workup, then I show my workup. It's a big difference in the rents. I hope that I highlighted our actual rents were controlled, $447 per month. The assessor's using that 666 per month as the average. There's only 30 units, so the actual rent is the gross potential is 161,000 if all 30 units were available. The assessment, again, I was just reflecting before, the assessment department, based on those certs that we've gotten, have allowed it. We basically agreed to use the maximum 20% vacancy rate. This owner, it's really work out. There's a big difference between the operating expenses. The assessment department is using $4,400 per residential unit per year. This owner's not really spending any money on it. Half the building's empty. So the actual operating expenses are substantially less. The net income that doing my work works up to $63,925. I'll go along the capitalization rate. I'm not arguing. If it's spit out a capitalized value of $1,022,000. I was just suggesting the shell value that we used before. That's basically how we sort of resolved the dispute before for the previous cycles. If I use $30,000 per residential suite, that would work out to $900,000 as an assessed value. But on the income approach, it's suggesting $1,022,000. I just want to, in summary, so I'm asking the value be dropped to $1,023,000. The building is original, there be no upgrades. The basement suites, because of the floor is basically being deteriorated from all the steam pipes, are taken into service. The assessor's description is aired on the number of units and the parking availability for the unit. And if the assessor had an opportunity to go in there, I'm pretty sure that he would agree with my oversight on the condition of the building, and he'd be able to sort of physically see the units are taken off the market on the unit to justify the higher vacancy rate. That's my presentation.
Any questions, Mr. Boardroom?
I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Chair, with regard to the actual revenue, how much was it per unit that 447, and that's the actual, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that the revenue, the actual revenue, the total revenue, gross potential is how much again?
Based on 30 units?
Based on 30 units.
161,000.
So that's rounded. Okay, 161,000, and that is if the property is 100% occupied, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I see. And you mentioned there is also chronic vacancy due to it's just not renting. Due to, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well, they're all ripped apart. The floors are shot, and the walls, because the pipes were leaking.
I see. Okay.
On the basement suite.
That's just a clarification I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Badger, you had mentioned about possibly a tear down or land value. So maybe you could expand on that.
The biggest problem here, like in the buildings, when you let it go this far, you basically have to do a total work over the building. Like you're not going to go there, redo the wiring, and not do the mechanical system, or you're not going to do the mechanical system, not redo the wiring. But to do all that, you basically have to tear apart, strip it from the inside to the studs, and rework it. And so there are people out there who will buy these heritage buildings. They know they can get around rent controls by basically redoing all the building systems, the windows and the whole shop. And then I know that from my experience, they're paying, this is it's a couple of years ago now, up to $30,000 a residential unit. So that includes the land and the shell of the building. So all you're really utilizing is just the physical structure of the building. You're not using anything else of the building. But you're looking at 120 to 150, $140,000 to redo the building per residential suite.
And does it suffer from chronic vacancy?
Oh yes. Well, the suites in the basement are at the point they can't be occupied because to patch the holes, because the water was leaking and the steam was leaking, they had to rip the walls apart. I mean, it's not worth it to go in there and redo the cosmetics, a new floor without, where do you stop? Where do you start? So this guy, he basically, right now, it's for the vacancy is probably 30-40%. It's just not, that's the reason why your operating expenses are low. Like you're just not doing anything with it. I don't agree with this approach, Ron. I don't agree with this approach to managing buildings, but that's just the way it is.
Okay, I thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Mr. Marks?
No questions for me, thank you.
Okay, you said there's 5 suites that are unoccupiable. And you said there was another 3. Are they just, are they vacant or are they unoccupiable?
Not until those required cosmetic. The basement ones are shot, but the upstairs ones can be could be easily painted and new kitchen cabinets that are right on. Okay,
so could rent them out if you just want to do a little bit of.
But even at 5, the problem is we're over that 20% limit. But I'm not here to argue that it's 35%, 40% is reasonable. I know the limit that they'll use is 20%, so I'm accepting that. The next property they'll be talking about, that's where they've actually used 20%. They've been in there, so it's probably in their model, knowing that the property has that similar problem.
Yeah. Okay, and to do any significant upgrades, then they would have to raise it to existing building code standards?
Yes.
Okay. And that would, and obviously can't use nothing but tube wiring.
So nowadays you can't even change the windows without upgrading. If you make the windows airtight, then you have to bring in makeup air.
Positive pressure.
Yeah. You're not going to go and put a makeup air when you've got all steam heat.
Yeah.
And anything good. So it's and then to put the power in to run those new systems, you got to upgrade the power.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for that. Let's do one more property before having a short break. So we'll do 682 Gordon Avenue. Okay. You can proceed, Mr. Boardroom. 682 Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-776. It has a roll number of 12022248000. It is located at 682 Corden Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with a reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $572,000 with the classification of 20 and liability of taxable. It is a residential apartment with one building and 3 stories. It has an actual year built of 1915 and an effective year built of 1917. It has 14 suites with 4 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 6,016 square feet, a plan area of 3,183 square feet, and a gross floor area of 12,732 square feet. On page 3 are the photos of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary for the subject property. It has a gross potential rent of $86,527 with a vacancy rate of 20%. It has an expense ratio of 57.42%, giving it a net operating income of $29,475. It has a capitalization rate of 5.15% and a capitalized income of $572,330, giving it a rounded market value of about $572,000. On page 5, there are 4 rent comparables. The first one is located at 572 Cordon Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $697. The next one is located at 481 Cordon Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of about $624. The third one is located at 554 Jesse Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of about $496. And the last comparable is located at 1472 Pembina Highway. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $809. And on the next page, I do have the map of the subject property and the comparable rents or leases. On page 7 are the capitalization rates. And on page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. On pages 9 to 10 is the income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions, Mr. Badger?
Yes. Did you have an opportunity to review this property?
Review meaning inspect?
Or, yeah, inspect it, or look at the past inspection reports?
No, I wasn't able to.
Be able to like physically view it, the property?
No, I wasn't able to.
Okay, just my question about the because the actual year built and effective year built are similar, means that it's never been upgraded, right?
I wouldn't be able to 100% say what the upgrades are. Probably there's a probability that it was upgraded.
On your page 4, the operating expenses, you use $39,747 per residential suite. That worked out to $2,839 per unit, which is less than the other ones that we've been talking about today. There were 33, 34, 35. Is there a reason why you think this one's less?
No, I don't see any reason why this one is less. All I can see is that the expense ratio for this and the other properties are almost within the same ballpark.
So you're just strictly using rate percent ratios rather than comparing actuals that are reported.
I'm using the model rates with regard to that, yes.
Which is based on percentages. Just for note, well, I'll get into it, okay, on my presentation, okay. I just, because I do have a problem on capitalization rates with this particular property you're using, the capitalization rates that you show on page 7 range from 4.8 to 6%, is that correct?
I'm sorry, five.
Capitalization. rates
yeah,
that you're-
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so in this particular case, on your workup and income, you're using a lower capitalization rate from the other properties that are similar condition and everything, similar locations. And your capitalization rate in this property is only 5.15%. Is there a reason why you're suggesting this one should have a lower capitalization rate? I'm very sorry about that, sir.
This is a model-driven capitalization rate, and there could be a lot of factors aside from the location with regard to what's being assigned as a capitalization rate.
And then I just want to, and then on the capitalization rate evidence sheet on page 8, if you look at the effective age of all those comparables there, they've all been either they're new properties or they're being upgraded.
There's some work that were done, yes.
Okay, but they're all the effective age of these are substantially newer than the subject property.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay, that addresses all my questions.
Okay, Doug, any questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Ron, any questions? Any questions, Ron?
I forgot I had muted you. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have none. Thank you.
Okay, I bet you're really sorry you have none.
Thanks, Neil.
Okay. So the 14 suites in this building there's none that are unoccupiable?
No, there are.
No, my mistake. This is the assessor that we're talking to. The model-driven cap rate for 5.15 is significantly less than the other ones of properties of the same age. Why would the model pick up 5.15?
Yeah, as I've mentioned earlier, there could be other factors. That's not on top of my head right now. I cannot assume anything. It's usually the size, age, location, all of these factors come into play. There could be other factors that I didn't mention, so I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, what's playing or what's influencing a lower cap rate on this property.
Okay. All right, and Mr. Badger, you can begin your presentation.
Basically, all the buildings are similar. It's a heritage building and it hasn't, we're on Gordon Avenue, right? Okay. Yeah, it's a heritage building. It has the same type of, the rents are controlled right now because there's never been any upgrades done to the building. So the rents range from $371 for a bachelor, $508 for a one, $563 for a 2-bedroom. These are hot rents. The building has 14 residential suites, 2 located in the basement, 4 units on the upper 3 floors. It's gas-fired steam heat system. The condensate pipes have failed in the lower level. 2 of the units are unoccupied condition. 2 of the upper units have also been taken out of use. So there's 4 in total right now that have been taken out. I don't want to get into the details. I just described it a little bit. The building exterior is in bad shape. There's bricks actually falling down on the front yard of the property. There's significant cracks in the building facade. I believe in this particular case, I include some pictures. Page 9, you want to flip there very quickly. The top left-hand corner is a picture taken with because the pipe's never been upgraded. That mess was created from allowing the pipes to erode and leak for numerous years to the point that it rotted out the floor joists going up. This has been repaired, but that's what's going on. But the rest of the building has not been, pipes have not been changed out yet. So they're experiencing leakage in other areas of the building. That's always patchwork type repairs. On the right hand side there, that's the basement floor, because that's basically being destroyed because the pipe's down there. So the 2 suites that were located in the basement have been taken out, and that's the way it exists right now. I told a picture there on the left hand side is a picture of the building. You can see how much it's shifted there, and the cracking that's going on the side of the building. The bottom right hand corner there, it's hard to see it from here, but I put a plug-in for CGM. Those are the engineers I use on a lot of my projects. You see the top of the parapet wall up there. The bricks have actually fallen out. You see they're loosed up in the top, but that's sort of the condition of the parapet wall going around the building. On the back side of that, there's 2 more pictures. That's a picture of the street in the lower level, because they had to destroy the floor to get at the leaking pipes. That's the way they left it. They just take it out of the service. So it's been like that for about 10, 12 years. On the right hand side, that's a picture of an upgrade, and a picture of a bathroom type situation where you can see now they're experiencing the water leakage in pipes on the other side of the building there. So they're starting to rip them out. But that's sort of what's causing the vacancy problem. But the basement, I mean, it's not feasible to do the basement suites because of the expense, unless you can do the whole building. I just want to jump to my evaluation summary. We're between the assessor's rent and the rents that are actual, we're pretty close. There's not much to say about that. What I've done is I got the owner statement there for 2020, and I normalized the statement, and I normalized it primarily for the vacancy factor. But in 2020, the actual vacancy rate for that year was 28.6%. But I know we can't exceed the 20%. And you see there's the assessment department has used the 20% to work up on the numbers there. Where I do have a big dispute is our operating expenses are higher than what the assessor is using. I want to point out that I looked at the 2020 assessment workup. The assessment department modeled it. They used 47,000, so they're actually using approximately $8,000 less this cycle. That doesn't make sense. But I did suggest to you, I think their operating expenses per residential unit is only $2,800, which is substantially lower than the market. Today we've been talking about that. The Balmoral property, which is a similar age and everything, they're using $3,700 over there. Jesse, what we just talked about, they're using $4,400. So I don't know why Ford they're only using $2,800. It just doesn't make sense. So their estimate of the operating expenses is sort of suspect. So I'm asking you to use the actual, which was 43,902. Where I have a big problem is the capitalization rate. They use 5.15%. I'm suggesting we should use 5.75%, which is towards the upper end of the range because of the condition of the building, the vacancy problem, and all its problems, and the rent being under controls. Again, on Jesse, we used assessment department used 6.25%. Jesse is just down the street. It's in there. Wellington Crescent, we're going to be talking about that next. They use 5.4% over there. Balmoral, they use 5.7%. So I'm saying that we should be using 5.75% in this property because of the condition of it. At least they ends my presentation.
Any questions, Mr. Valderrama?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Doug, questions?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Ron, question?
Mr. Badger, can you specify the value for the record?
Okay. $451,000.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe I forgot to highlight the past decisions. You'll see in the valuation as of 2014, 475 reduced to 355, 575 down to 370, 626 down to 388.
Unfortunately, Mr. Badger, those are different reference years, so we don't really take that into consideration.
It's more just the pattern of the being oversets because of the model. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no questions. Except to say, you know, the past assessment years are based on past assessment, those years. We don't know what evidence was presented at those years.
It's mostly just it's the model that I think is the problem. It's an abnormal. Unfortunately, this guy's the condition of all his buildings don't fit the model. That's the problem.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take it's time now, 10:34. We'll break till 10:45.
Yes.
Okay, we are now back in session. The next property on our agenda is 728 Dorchester. Mr. Valderrama, I noticed you requested a non-co-op on that.
Mr. Chair, I would like to remove that in the request.
Okay, so you're removing the non-co-op.
Yes, I just I think I just forgot to remove it.
Okay, so then we'll proceed then with your presentation.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So let me proceed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-775. There's a roll number of 120-225-29000. It is located at 728 Dorchester Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with a reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $977,000. And it's a classification of residential 2 and a liability of taxable. It is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories, an actual year built of 1912, effective year built of 1913. It has 16 suites with a land area of 9,005 square feet, plan area of 5,741 square feet, and gross floor area of 22,964 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of the property's pictures, subject properties photos. On page 4 is the income valuation summary. There are 14 units with a gross potential rent of $140,549, a vacancy rate of 4.2%, an expense on giving it an effective gross income of $134,646. It has an expense ratio of 61.89%, giving it a net operating income of $51,314. That has a capitalization rate of 5.25%, giving it a capitalized income of $977,410 and an estimated rounded market value of about $977,000. On the next page, page 5, we have 4 rent comparables. The first one is located at 670 Gertrude Avenue, has an average monthly rent of $978. The next one is located at 607 Macmillan Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $993. Sorry. And the third one is located at 879 Warsaw Avenue, has an average monthly rent of per unit of about $829. the last one on the last one, which is the fourth comparable, is located at 538 Macmillan Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $848. Then the subject property has an average monthly rent per unit of $836.60. On the next page is the map of the subject property and comparable leases. On page 7 is the capitalization rate, and on page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. Pages 9 to 10 is the income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, Mr. Badger?
Yeah, I guess just gonna ask you those, I just want to review those quick questions that I've asked you in all the report. Based on the fact that the actual date that was built, the effective year built, the property hasn't been upgraded. You going to, I guess you can't confirm it. Your knowledge, it hasn't been upgraded, right?
I'm not 100% sure about that. It's just there's an effective year built of 1913, which is different from 1912. Whatever happened or any permits that were pulled, they're not in my evidence right now, Mr. Chair.
The number of suites that we list here is 16. And your workup, your economic workup, your income workup, use 14. We'll get into that. That's because 2 units are taken out of service.
Okay.
And I guess they're acknowledging it now. They're picking up that difference. Okay. I don't want to. We're in agreement with the basically the rents. I just want to maybe acknowledge though on your page 7, capitalization rates in the range of I think it's 4.8 to 6%. Is the reason why you're suggesting this one's 5.25%, which is in the lower part of the range?
It is the model-driven cap rate.
And then on your capitalization rate evidence, all those properties are all affected age are all newer
Compared to the subject property.
location, city, and but you're not relying. You're saying before I think that you're not relying on this rate. You're relying on the model rate rather than the evidence you're giving here. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Those are all my questions.
Okay, Mr. Merritt, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vadarema, your expense ratio of 62% seems to be a little high. How is that derived?
It's a model-driven expense rate. Not sure how it is derived by the model, but it is on the high side, correct?
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's within the ballpark of what we are seeing right now, right? Or the properties that we are dealing with.
Okay, and the cap rate of 5.25%, model driven?
Correct, sir.
Okay, I thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Mr. Marks?
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to go on a cap rate on this one, and it probably applies to the last one too. Your cap rate 5.25 is kind of mid-range, so somewhere around the median, maybe just above, just below, whatever. But we have an older building here with older wiring, not up to current code, that sort of thing. Wouldn't that suggest a higher risk on that building if you were to buy it? If an investor was looking to buy a building, it would say this one is going to be, a risk of fairly high risk to it.
Mr. Chair, this question might fall under a hypothetical case. However, I'm not sure how an investor really looks at a property. There could be a lot of factors that an investor is maybe looking at, maybe the potential income that it may generate in the future, getting away from the rent controls due to renovations or whatever, right? So honestly, I'm not sure how to answer that question. It is a very hypothetical case, Mr. Chair. However, I mean, the expenses, the expense ratio that is being assigned by the model may play a factor in terms of how old the property is. May or may not, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. However, due to the high expenses, if we look at the expense ratio assigned by the model, it seems that it is reflective of how old the property is. And also the rent, it's not that high, to be honest. It's within the ballpark of the older properties, older stock in Winnipeg. So if we're gonna answer the question of, would it add more risk, or should we add more risk to the capitalization rate? I think not. I think the model has definitely took that into consideration in terms of the expense ratio, and maybe a little bit on the revenue side. I think that's my opinion. So to be honest, I'm not sure how an investor might look at a property like this.
All right, thank you. So,
Thank you.
Mr. Badger, you can proceed with your presentation.
I'm just trying to accelerate, okay, for expediency here, because it's the same old story. It's a heritage building, hasn't been upgraded. It does contain, or it did contain 16 residential units, and the footprint in the basement shows that, but it's all ripped apart that they can't utilize 2 of the basement suites. 2 of the upper units are vacant, so there is a vacancy problem because of the constant work that they're doing on the other units. The only thing I just want to highlight in this building here, just to justify the higher expense ratio. As a percentage, it looks high, but if you take a look at the actual is higher, but the square footage of these units, the average square footage per suite, gross area per suite, it's almost double what the other ones were. We're at 1,435 square feet per residential unit here. So these are all large 2-bedroom units. So it's a size, in my mind, it's the size of the suites or the area per suite that influences the operating expenses. More so than a straight percentage of the rent. What I'd like to do is just flip to the page 10, just to show you some of the pictures, conditions. Top left-hand corner is a picture of the basement suite. There's two in there. You can see through that it's been ripped apart. It's been like that for 8 years, 10 years. The reason I took a picture of the right-hand side of the door, the building has been shifting and causing breaks in the plumbing, and you can see evidence of the shifting there by, you take a look at that door there. If you look at the frame of the door, you see a big gap in the door there. So they're having issues like that. You can see on the bottom left-hand corner, it's the old steam heat again. This is down the lower area there. That's probably the culprit to a lot of the problems, because it needs to be repiped and everything. And that's a typical fuse panel for a suite. To go back to your, remember I mentioned there's 6 per suite. Like nowadays you probably have 6 in one kitchen. Yeah, well, maybe not that much, but at least 4 or something like that in one kitchen. So it's never been upgraded. What I do then is just put in the back side there my workup. I'm actually using a rent level that's higher than the, I'm sorry, I'm using mine's based on the 16, and the accessory use is on 14 suites, okay? And so the more likely the difference between my actual rents is, our rents are pretty close in line per suite, but on his workup, my workup, it's higher because I have one extra suite in it, or two extra suites. That probably justifies that difference. What I would like to say, my argument would be on the vacancy factor, I'm suggesting that I'm using mine on 16 units, so we got to somehow get back to the 14. Plus, I said there was another suite that taken out of commission. So I applied a 20% vacancy factor on my gross potential 16 units. Which basically I said there's 3 out of 16 would give you 18.75% automatically right off the hopper. If you add the 4.2, it's over 20%. But the maximum that the assessment department's using is 20%. Our operating costs are basically in line with the assessment department's workup. And it is higher compared to my other property, the other properties I'm talking about. That's probably, it's more of a factor of the size of the suites. There's more 2-bedroom units than smaller ones, and they're all quite large. It's an all heritage building. They tend to have larger suite sizes. My other argument, the capitalization rate of 5.25%, I would say is below average in terms of the range because of the age and the condition of the property. And the vacancy problems they've had over the years. I'm suggesting 5.75% would be a more appropriate capitalization rate, which would give you a value of $875,000. That's my recommendation. Jesse, as an example, I just want to remind you that Jesse property they used 6.25% cap rate. Sargent was 5.7%. Wellington Crescent, the property next one we're going to be talking about, which is a prominent street, it has a higher capitalization rate, 5.4%, than the 5.25% that they're using here. That's my presentation.
All right, questions, Mr. Boardroom?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Doug, any questions?
None for me, thank you.
Ron, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Badger, I see that your NOIs are fairly close to the same, so the main difference is the cap rate.
That's
So
correct.
the city's at 5.25, and you're at 5.75. So have you, where did you get your, or what proof, or where did you come up with the 5.75? Do you have a cap study or something like that?
No, I just said because of the risk factor, I use something towards the above average, 5.75, meaning like with a range of 5 to 7%, 5 to 6% being the range for the properties. I use something above average. That's why I picked the midpoint between the middle and the upper, 5.75.
You talked about, are these, you had mentioned several times heritage buildings. Are they registered as heritage buildings?
No,
No?
they're not because the owner has always bought those. A couple of property they have them noted, but they're not registered.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
they'd have to pull them down.
So your terminology in regards to heritage building is just the fact that it's old?
Yes.
Okay.
The age
But they're not registered as heritage buildings.
I would say that they're listed but not registered.
Okay. Okay, I thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, and I have no questions on this. So we will go to your last property then on 264 Wellington Crescent. Just pull up the file. Okay, you can proceed, Mr. Boardroom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the next property has a file number of 22-789. It has a roll number of 12022188500. It is located at 264 Wellington Crescent. There's a split assessment on this one. The first assessment, we're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with the reference date of April 1st, 2021. There's a split assessment. The first assessment is valued at $193,000. It is a residential one, and it is a taxable. And then the second assessment is valued at $2,025,000. It is a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. The main use of the property is a residential apartment with 2 buildings and 2 to 3 stories. Has an actual years built of 1910 and 1911, which goes the same as effective years built. Has 23 suites with 16 outdoor parking. It is zoned as residential 2. It has a land area of 36,926 square feet, a plan area of 13,399 square feet, and a gross floor area of 51,883 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of photos of the subject property. And on the next page, I do have the income valuation summary. There are 2, again, as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 assessments or split assessments. I'll go through them. The first one, the residential 1 taxable or 10T, the gross potential rent is $27,210, has a vacancy rate of 4.2%, an effective gross income of $26,067, an expense ratio of 60.05%, giving it a net operating income of $10,414. It has a capitalization rate of 5.4%, giving it a capitalized income of $192,852, or $193,000 rounded. The next assessment has a class and liability of 20T. It has a gross potential rent of $285,710. Same vacancy rate at 4.2%, giving it an effective gross income of $273,710. Has an expense ratio of 60.05%, same as the other, giving it a net operating income of $109,347. Using the capitalization rate of 5.4%, the capitalized income is $2,024,944, or $2,025,000 rounded. On the next page, page 5, are the rent comparables. The first one is located at 890 Macmillan Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,059. The next one is located at 349 Daly Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,066. The third one is located at 508 Macmillan Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,069. The fourth comparable is located at 561 Warsaw, or 561 Warsaw. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,177. Page 8 or page 6 is the capitalization rate. Page 7 is the capitalization rate evidence. On page 8 is my map of the subject property and the comparable rents. Pages 9 to 10 is the income and expense information. And I think that's all the that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, Mr. Badger?
So, I guess I just an acknowledgement that what's written here is, it would show that the building was built in 1910 and 1911. And there's been no upgrades. Otherwise, it'd be reflected with a higher effective year. Is that correct?
Again, without knowing or looking at the permits that were pulled for this property, it may be the case.
The gross floor area per suite here is 2256. You do your math, and you've done your math there. Make sure it's right, yeah. Is that extremely high in terms of the size of these suites?
As I mentioned earlier, I think I've answered that question. I wouldn't be able to ascertain 100% if it's an average, below average, or above average in terms of the gross floor area.
Okay, the capitalization rate used is model driven.
Correct.
And the capitalization rate evidence is just something that was put in there to look at, but you didn't rely on that information.
No. However, those are the samples or indication of what the market is doing or how the market is doing in terms of capitalization rates.
Those are my only questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Merritt, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vanarama, why is there a
Yes, sir.
split here? I don't, is there a residential building, an apartment building, or what? What's going on here?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure what's going on. I wasn't able to inspect the property
Because
the interior.
it looks like there's an apartment building, and
Right.
maybe isn't the classification the 10? Isn't that residential? No.
Yes, it is. I believe
Okay.
so.
Okay. So is there a house there, or?
I cannot determine it based on the pictures, Mr. Chair.
Well, maybe the client can, give us some insight. I have no further questions.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you stole my question, Mr. Ron. Doug, you need questions here?
Yes, have there been any building permits taken out on this address?
Sir, I'm not sure. I wasn't able to review the permits on this property.
So in that regard, then there has been no upgrades to any of the electrical, plumbing, structural that you're aware of.
Without looking at the permits on this property, I wouldn't be able to answer the question with certainty, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
All right, you can proceed then.
Maybe I'll just, so I don't forget, Ron, right? It's,
Ron Merritt, yeah.
yeah, Ron, yeah, there's a 2.5-story home that is abutted up to the side of a townhome. This is basically, it's a stacked townhome project. And there's 6 suites per floor going up. Now, the only thing I really want, it's very unusual, actually, I love the historic history, but these used to house a lot of the executives from the Bay and the Eatons and that in the old days. They're very huge suites. Like I mentioned I just wanted to raise it because we're going to have a discussion on the operating costs per suite here. These units, the sizes of these units are 1,850 square feet. And the gross building area divided by the number of suites is up to around 2,300. That's 3 times higher per suite than some of these other ones that we've been talking about. And that's one reason why the operating expenses are so high in this old building. It's got some nice features in it that used to work and stuff like I actually we used to have woodworking fireplaces, and they had little gas pipes that would pre-start your fire for your wood fires. But they don't allow those nowadays. They're not there. But there's some old, really neat old features in there. But the building has not been, other than re-roofing, boiler, like all of them have had to replace the boilers over the years. And if you're involved in a gas fitter, then you have to get a permit for that. So other than electrical, nothing's been upgraded. The gas connection just to the new boiler would just to reconnect and connect. That's probably the only permit that's ever been taken out in this building. So I'm just going to run through my presentation. See if I can find where it is. Sorry, I'm getting a little tired. The assessed value is 2.2. My recommendation is lower to 1.878. I just want to mention we're not having a dispute on the rents. There's no dispute there. There's 23 residential units. There is this annex building that I'm talking about that has 2 suites in it. The vacancy rate in 2020 averaged 9.8%, and it's currently, when I'm doing this, it's currently at 13%. Again, it's because of all the building systems slowly breaking down. It's causing it. It's more than just paint. If a tenant moves out, it's causing problems with plaster falling off the walls. Like they tell me a new roof in this building only lasts 10, they're only getting 10 to 15 years out of a new roof because of the seepage of the steam heat through, and there's no vapor barrier in this old building, so it goes up and destroys your old asphalt shingles. So that's the condition of the building. It's in very rough shape. We'll just flip to the my last page, evaluation summary. You can see here I'm actually showing a higher gross potential rent. We've submitted what the rents are. Where I'm in dispute would be the vacancy rate. They're using the model 4.2% because this building is based on past experience and the problems the building has, being older and everything like that. I'm suggesting a normalized statement use 5% rather than 4.2%. The owners at the time in 2020 when we submitted our information, it was almost 10% vacant. Going down to the operating expenses, I'm suggesting though our actual is $223,000. I reduced it slightly when I normalized it. That works out to $9,400 per suite, which is almost twice as high as some of the numbers we were talking about earlier today on the other buildings. But this building, each suite, we got 3 times the floor area in some of those examples. So that's why the operating expenses per unit are substantially high. It's a great building for people looking for cheap rent because they're all 3 bed. Most of them are 3 bedrooms. So they get a lot of kids, university kids. They don't mind moving into an old building where they split the rent, and that's it's sort of renting by bedroom, type of thing. That's sort of what's going on in there. They're the ones that would put up with the condition of the building. On the capitalization rate, I'm just going along with the capitalization rate, what the assessor has said. So my only dispute is the vacancy factor. I want to notch it up, and the operating expenses to something that's more reflective of the actual than a percentage or a mile driven. That works, gives you a value of the $1.875 million.
Okay, questions, Mr. Boardroom?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Marks, questions?
Nothing for me. Thank you. My question has been answered.
Mr. Merritt, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Badger, you're requesting 1.878.
Yes.
Can you give us the breakdown, or do we have to figure that out?
Oh. I don't know why. I guess they have to split it.
I've done that for you.
Okay, thank you.
The 10 should be 163, and the 20 should be 1,715,000. I think that's the breakdown.
I appreciate that. At the end of this hearing, my mind's too shot to.
All right. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, just an observation that since Mr. Merritt has had the coffee, he's probably sharper than we are.
Thank you, Neil.
I have no questions, so I guess that concludes your properties. So then let's proceed with the final 4 properties.
Yes, that's good. Sorry, it takes so long. That's right.
So. Yeah. Come up and be sworn in.
See you this afternoon.
Good day.
Please state your full name.
Frank Winter.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please sit.
Okay. So.
I'm trying to make my side quick.
All right. 85 Henry Road. You can proceed, Mr. Valderrama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next property has a file number of 22-716. It has a roll number of 07433382000. It is located at 85 Carriage Road. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023, a reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $4,115,000. It is residential 2 with a taxable liability. It is a residential apartment with 1 building and 3 stories. Its actual and effective year built is 1972. It has 57 suites with 34 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 56,620 square feet, a plan area of 15,840 square feet, and a gross floor area of 47,520 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of photos of the subject property. On page 4 is the income valuation summary. The gross potential rent for this property is $491,762, vacancy rate of 3.2%, calculated effective gross income of $476,026. It has an expense ratio of 55.48%, giving it a net operating income of $211,927. Using the capitalization rate of 5.15%, the capitalized income is $4,115,087, or $4,115,000 rounded. On the next page, page 5, are 4 comparable rents. The first one is located at 3505 Portage Avenue. It has an average monthly rent of $806. The next comparable is located at 100 Sinowick Bay. Its average monthly rent per unit is $711. The third one is located at 2075 Portage Avenue. Its average monthly rent is $965. And the last comparable is located at 710 David Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $716. Next page has the map of the subject property and comparable leases. The next page, on page 7, is the capitalization rates. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And on page 9 and 10 is the income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, questions, Mr. Winter?
Yeah, just to confirm, the city's financial statements are based on modeling, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
And it's not property specific, so you don't have the actual numbers. You just have what I sent in by the mailers, is that correct?
we have the income valuation summary has the model derived parameters or numbers, and I have attached on pages 9 and 10 the income and expense information that was submitted to the department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's it then. Thank you.
Okay, Doug, any questions on the assessment?
Yes, any permits been taken out on this property?
I am not aware. I have not reviewed the permits on this property, sir.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions on this property? I think you're muted again, Ron. You still seem to be muted.
Mr. Merritt, you are muted. Mr. Merritt, can you hear me? You are muted.
No, we still can't hear you, Ron.
Here we go.
There
Sorry, sorry. When I have multi-screens, I get lost at times. Mr. Vanderama, your evaluation is all model driven?
Correct, sir.
Okay, so you can't really say the CAP study concluded the 5.15?
As I've mentioned earlier, sir,
You have no proof or anything like that here?
it is a model-driven cap, sir.
Okay. And the expenses model driven?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Did I answer them?
Yes.
Okay, well, I have no questions, so you can proceed, Mr. Walker.
Okay, thank you. We respectfully wish to apply for revision to the 223rd realty assessment roll. The city has assessed us $4,115,000, and it's been increased by 15.7% over the last assessment of $3,556,000. We're requesting that the revision be changed to $3,668,000. The property is located in St. James. The property is a 3-story walk-up building located at 85 Carriage Road. It was built in 1972, consisting of 3 bachelors, 39 one-bedrooms, and 15 two-bedrooms. It offers clean, affordable, no frills accommodation. The mix is 26% 2 bedrooms, 74% 1 bedrooms, and bachelor. Our understanding of the valuation process is that the property is to be valued on the income approach. We therefore respectfully request that the board order the revision of the assessment from $4,115,000 to no more than $3,668,000 to bring it in line with 2021 market value. I enclosed the statements of for the last 2019, 2020, and 2020 year. I've stabilized the average net income at $192,575. The cap rate I've used is 5.25, and that's how the market value of $3,668,000 came about. The city used a cap rate of in 2019 of 5.3. And in 2019 on appeal, we had a reduction from 3,722,000 to 3,556,000. And if I use the cap rate of 5.15, the value would be considerably lower. I'm sorry, if I use the cap rate that the city's using at 5.15, my value of the building would be $3,739,000. So, and anyways, there's a reduction whether you set my 5.25 or the city's 5.15. There's a reduction. Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Valderrama?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ron, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Winter. Thank you for your patience, for being here. Your cap rate that you're requesting, where was that gotten from? The 5.25?
Well, I used the last one that the city used in the 2020 or the last reassessment was 5.3. They've reduced it to 5.15. I'm saying, well, that's at 5.25. I think it's a fair number. Even if I look at these cap rates that the city has, they start at the 20th percentile at 4.8. The other big brokerage firms are at 5 and 5.25, 5.5, and that's where they start their range. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I know these brokerage companies want to sell things, and they're going to give the lowest rate possible. So I think a 5.25 rate was fair, and that's why I applied it.
I guess this is your actual financial statement for your property, I guess, Mr. Winter.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess there's a difference between what the city's at for their net operating income. They have $212,000, and you're at 194, eh?
190. Our average was 192.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's where we have a little discrepancy there.
I'm sorry. The revenues are, I think, pretty well tied in after it's the expenses, because this building includes everything. It includes cable, heat, power, water, and parking. It's a high expense property. I think the city had a 55.48% expense thing, and ours comes out to 59. So,
what are your expenses run roughly in regards to the building overall on average year, percentage wise?
Well, I think I just mentioned it. I think it was 59% for this period.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I thank you very kindly. Thank you.
My question's been answered. Thank you.
Okay. So your approach then, you don't use a specific vacancy rate. It's just what revenue.
Well, basically,
Vacancy reflected.
Ours is a net number.
Yeah.
So, and it seems to tie in pretty well to their. I think what he had at gross income of 476, and we got 474 type of thing in 2020. So 2019 we had a little bit of a vacancy issue. So
Okay, now I was going to ask, historically, what sort of vacancies have you had there?
Well, it must be pretty close to this 3% for it too. to come up to this number, so.
Okay. All right, so I have no more questions on this property then. We will go to 215 Douglas Avenue. Files. Okay, Mr. Boardroom on 215 Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next one has a file number of 22-709. It has a roll number of 04-001-057-100. It is located at 215 Douglas Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $2,284,000 with a classification of residential 2 and a taxable liability. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories, an actual and effective year built of 1981. It has 24 suites with 24 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 23,493 square feet, a planned area of 7,448 square feet, with a gross floor area of 24,408 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of photos of the subject property. On page 4 is the income valuation summary. The gross potential rent for the property is $232,180. It has a vacancy rate of 3.2%, giving it an effective gross income of $224,750. Using the expense ratio of 50.72%, the net operating income is $110,757. The capitalization rate assigned is 4.85%. Applying it to the net operating income would yield a capitalized income of $2,283,649, or $2,284,000 rounded. On the next page, page 5, there are 4 rent comparables. The first one is located at 480 Gray Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $877. The second rent comparable is located at 635 Watt Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $828. The third rent comparable is located at 1075 Henderson Highway. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $938. And the last comparable is located at 295 Midwinter Avenue. It has an average monthly rent of $883. The next page has the map of the subject property and comparable leases. Page 7 has the capitalization rate ranges. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. On pages 9 to 10 is the income and expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, questions?
Well, basically, it's the same thing I've asked before. The city's financial statements, again, are based on modeling. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And so it's not based on a property specific income statements. Is that correct?
No.
And the cap rates that have been used on your report. I guess on this particular property, we've gone to 4.85. You've shown capitalization rate evidence, and everything here is the highest one is 4.79. Is there nothing over 4.79? Are there no properties in the 5s, 6s, or?
Again, these are sampling of what's happening in the market, and comparing it to the ranges that we have between 4.8 to 5.6, these are the sales that we found, and trying to see here that there are some cap rates that went below 5.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Thank you,
Murray.
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Vanderema, your cap rate from the last property, would it have a lower cap rate due to the age of the building?
As I mentioned earlier, sir, there are a lot of factors how a model assigns a cap rate, one of which is age, and then the others are location, size of the property, and all that. So with regard to the age or the capitalization rate of being low compared to previous properties that we discussed, basing it on the age alone, I cannot determine that, Mr. Chair, if it's based on age alone, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so there's no override or anything like that that you know of?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Doug, any questions?
My question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, and my question was answered too. So you,
Thank you. The city assessment, the new 2023 assessment of 2,284,000 has been increased by approximately 13% over the last assessment of 2,021,000 based on market value of the last realty assessment. The revision that we're requesting is that to decrease the assessment from 2,284,000 to 2,033,500. The property is located in North Kildonan. The property is a 3-story walk-up building located at 215 Douglas Avenue. It was built in 1980, consisting of 15 one-bedrooms and 9 two-bedrooms. Again, it's clean, affordable, no-frills accommodation. The mix is 38% 2 bedrooms, 62% 1 bedrooms. Our understanding of the valuation approach again is that the property is to be valued on the income approach. We therefore respectfully request that the board order the revision of the assessment from 2,284,000 to no more than 2,033,500 to bring it in line with the 2021 market value. We've again enclosed the statements for years 2020 and 2019. We stabilized the net operating income at 106,760. We've used a cap rate of 5.25 and came up with the market value of 2,033,500. There's also a cap rate of 5.5, but I'll dismiss that one. So the cap used here, I guess by the city is 4.85. The city in the last assessment used 5.5 even. We feel that the cap rate should be 5.25 to reflect the other brokerages cap rates. The building, I guess, not overly old, but still 1980 vintage. It lacks some of the amenities that new buildings have. And there's, with the supply of new buildings coming up, there's some stress factors as well on that. And and the last reduction last year, or the last time we were here for an appeal in the last assessment, it was reduced from 2,183,000 to 2,021,000.
Again, I would caution on that because we don't know what the previous, what the evidence was in the previous hearing, so. Okay, questions, Mr. Valderrama?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Doug, questions?
No questions for me, thank you.
Brown, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Winter, you have on your page, I think it's 2 here.
Yeah.
You've given us 2 figures. One with a capitalization of 5.25 and the other one with 5.5. So whereabouts are you?
You know, I'll take 5.25. I'll take 5.5 as well, but 5.25 would probably be
Well,
a more
help,
realistic one.
help the panel by deciding which one you want.
I'll go 5.25, make it easier.
Okay. And that is going also to your Carriage Road property, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And would there have, so in order to be consistent, Carriage Road is in St. James and Douglas is in North Kelowna?
That's correct.
Okay, I thank you.
All right, I have no questions that haven't been asked and answered. So thank you for that. We'll go on to our penultimate property. And that's good work. 210 Maxwell. So, Mr. Valderrama, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next property has a file number of 22-710. It has a roll number of 0203153500. It is located at 210 Maxwell Place. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $4,126,000. It's classified as a residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building and 2 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1964. It has 39 suites with 37 outdoor parking. The property has a land area of 33,650 square feet, a planned area of 12,043 square feet, a gross floor area of 36,129 square feet. On page 3, there are photos of the subject property. Page 4 is the income valuation summary. The gross potential rent is $432,338. The vacancy rate is 3.2%, giving it an effective gross income of about $418,503. The expense ratio is 48.24%. Applying that to the effective gross income would net an operating income of $216,617. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.25%, the capitalized income is $4,126,038, or $4,126,000 even. On the next page, page 5, are the rent comparables. The first one is located at 349 Edison Avenue. It has an average monthly rent of $973. The next comparable is located at 433 Edison Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $980. The third comparable is located at 30 Valhalla Drive. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $891. And the last comparable is located at 1080 Moncton Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,002. On page 6 is the map of the subject property and the comparable leases. On page 7 is the capitalization rates. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. Pages 9 to 10 is where the income and expense information for the subject property is. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. What's your questions?
No questions.
Okay, done.
Thank you,
Question.
sir.
Just one, any permits taken out on this structure at all?
2014.
What was that one?
I am not sure. Yeah.
You're asking me.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Thank you for the answer. I'm not. I wasn't able to review the permit file on this property, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ron, questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I have none, so you can proceed then.
Okay. Again, 210 Maxwell, the city assessed the property at $4,126,000. It has been increased by 11.2% over the last assessment of $3,711,000. The revision requested, please be advised, we are applying for revision to decrease the assessed value from $4,126,000 to no more than $3,654,000. The property is located at 210 Maxwell in East Kildonan off Brazier Street. Again, the property is a 3-story walk-up building, 39 suites built in 1964, 1 bachelor, 12 one-bedrooms, 12 one-bedrooms plus, and 14 two-bedrooms. Our understanding of the valuation process, again, is that the property is to be valued on the income approach. We therefore respectfully request that the assessment from $4,126,000 be reduced to no more than $3,654,000 to bring it in line with 2021 market values. Again, I've included the statements from 2019 and 2020, brought a stabilized number for net operating income of $191,845. The cap rate at that we seem to agree on is 5.25. The market value using the actual numbers is $3,654,000. The cap rate used in 2019, I believe, was 5.3 by the city. And well, you don't want to hear this one, they reduced 2019 as well.
Any questions, Mr. Valderrama?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Doug, you can ask a question on that permits.
Were there any building permits?
Yes, in 2014.
And what was it for?
It was some windows. We replaced some windows and the roof.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions.
Okay, Ron, questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, my question is, looking through the things that the main difference is in the expenses. Yeah, your incomes are very similar.
Yeah, we seem to be running at yes, ours is at 53.8%. He said 48.2.
Yeah, so why are the expenses high in this? Well, about 50% in this.
Well, I think the last one too was sort of 50-ish%. The Carriage Road, I think, was sitting at 56%. It varies by building. This is sort of an older building. It's 63. We're spending quite a bit on repairs and maintenance to keep it up. It's better than having vacancies. If you look after your tenants, they'll stick around, and at least you put it into the building rather than losing money.
So you're saying let's just keep it keep the suites generating revenue. We do.
Yeah, and you gotta put the money into it anyways, why not?
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you. Now our last property. I hear it again. All right. 1067 Henderson. So we can proceed, Mr. Boardroom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last property on the docket has a file number of 22-711. The property has a roll number of 0203160900. It is located at 1067 Henderson Highway. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with the reference date of April 1st, 2021. The property is assessed at $3,227,000. It is classified as residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 2 stories, an actual year built of 1963 and an effective year built of 1983. It has 29 suites with 29 outdoor parking. It has a land area of $25,822 or 22 square feet, sorry. Plan area of 8,689 square feet, a gross floor area of 26,067 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of photos of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. The gross potential rent for the property is $302,715, has a vacancy rate of 3.2%. Applying that to the gross potential rent would yield an effective gross income of $293,028. Applying an expense ratio of 47.14%, it would net an operating income of $154,895. Applying a capitalization rate of 4.8%, the capitalized income is $3,226,979 or $3,227,000 rounded. Next page, page 5, are the rent comparables. The first one is located at 1060 1060 Brazier Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $884. The next comparable is located at 1025 Monroe Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $982. The third rent comparable is located at 225 Edison Avenue. Has an average monthly rent per unit of $922. And the last comparable is located at 295 Midwinter Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $883. The next page, page 6, is the map of the subject property and comparable leases. On page 7, it's the capitalization rate. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence based on sales. And on pages 9 and 10 is the income and expense information for the subject property. That's my presentation now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, questions, Mr. Winter?
Yes, in 2019, the cap rate that the city used was 5. Now they dropped it to 4.8. Can you explain that to me?
2018, did you say 2019 or 2019?
I'm sorry, 2019 for the 2020 assessment year. The cap rate they used was 5%.
Yes, that is an assessment for different assessment year or roll year. So I'm not sure how to answer that. I don't really compare previous assessments to the current assessment.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Ron, any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
None for me, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
I have, if you look at the last property on Maxwell. Built in 64 versus built in 63, so very similar ages. 39 suites in Maxwell, 29 suites here. And yet the cap rate on Maxwell is 5.25, and the cap rate here is 4.8. That seems to be quite a bit of difference on similar properties.
Both are model driven cap rates, and as mentioned earlier, there could be a lot of factors why a model would assign such a cap rate on each property. So that's how I would answer it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Winter, you can proceed.
Thank you. The new 2023 assessment for this building was $3,227,000. It's an increase of 7.5% over the last assessment of $3,001,000. Please be advised, we are applying for a revision to decrease the assessed value from $3,227,000 to no more than $2,861,700. The property is located at 1067 Henderson Highway. It's a 3-story walk-up again. It was built in 1963, consisting of 29 one-bedrooms. Our understanding and valuation process, again, is that the property is to be valued on the income approach. We therefore respectfully request that the board order the revision of the assessment from $3,227,000 to no more than $2,861,700 to bring it in line with the 2021 market value. Again, I've attached this in the statements and stabilize the net operating income of $150,240. And I capitalized the rate at 5.25 to come up to $2,861,700. City used a cap of 5% in 2019. Even if I use that cap on my numbers, I'd come up with a value of $3,004,800. So I would think that would be the floor.
Okay, questions, Mr. Boardroom?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mertz, questions?
I have none, Mr.